Richard, oh my Lord, you're everywhere. I mean, the phone has just been ringing off the hook. I need a secretary.
Yeah, I think I might need a secretary too. Some guy from New York just asked me if I want to write a book.
You don't mean it.
No, I'm not kidding you. They tell me, apparently, oh Lord, apparently they got somebody who, they think all the stuff in the book, they type it out, and then they just ask you yes or no, true or false, did it happen? Then they pay you. You do that for money.
Oh my God, you're a rock star.
I can't even think right now.
Are you all right? You've been up for so long. Oh my
I'm
God.
sorry. I didn't even
so
hug you.
horrible.
Oh no, I was
so
there.
awful.
So that's a clip from Richard Jewell starring Paul Walter Hauser. And in that clip, the fantastic Kathy Bates. Paul joins us from somewhere in America. Hello, Paul Walter Hauser. Can you hear us, sir?
Hey, Simon and Mark. How you doing, guys?
Very good. Welcome to the show.
We're doing very well. We have like a three-way delay, so this is good. So this is going to be great. So I'm in London. Mark is in Southampton. Where are you, Paul?
I'm in Los Angeles, California, in my Silver Lake neighborhood. It's a pretty cozy little area.
And how long have you been in lockdown for?
Oh, geez, I sort of stopped counting. I think it's probably been 2 full weeks that I've been on lockdown, and maybe a couple of days. I only really go out to occasionally get groceries or to see a friend.
See a friend? We're not allowed to do that. We're not allowed to see friends. So you have different rules there.
Well, I think the rule here is that they encourage isolation completely, but you can be allowed up to, I think, 10 people in the same space while maintaining distance. So, I would say once a week I go to see a friend, and if neither of us have symptoms, we'll watch a movie and chat for a little while just to kind of break it up and stay sane throughout this whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're speaking to you because Richard Jewell is about to become available on streaming services. So normally this is a movie review program, and we reviewed Richard Jewell when it came out, but now it's coming out there on streaming services. So we thought it would be a fantastic opportunity to talk to you about it, which I guess you must have filmed it quite a long time ago now, a couple of years back.
Well, let's put the horse before the cart here. You just said you reviewed the film. Did you review it positively? Should I even be doing this interview right now, guys? What was the verdict from Simon and Mark on Richard Jewell?
The verdict was that you do a very, very good job of portraying a character who finds himself in a position in which everybody imagines them to be somehow suspicious because of the nature of the character. And in fact, we had talked about your work previously in I, Tonya. So you have nothing to worry about on that front, Paul.
Oh, okay. That was a good answer. That was well put. I'm impressed. Yeah, no, this project fell in my lap a year ago this month. So a year ago, I was in Thailand making a film with Spike Lee. It was our second collaboration. And while I was there, I got a phone call saying Clint Eastwood would like you to star in his new film. And I thought, that doesn't sound realistic. That doesn't sound right. And sure enough, he was putting together this project and had been circling it for maybe 4 years and wanting to do it. Because he only works at Warner Brothers, I wasn't sure if the film would happen because it was a film set up at Fox. But sure enough, they worked their magic. They got it at Warner Brothers, and I think it was about 2.5 months later that I got the phone call. Probably 2 months later, I was on set filming in Atlanta, Georgia.
And is it true, Paul, that Clint Eastwood, he just kind of works on instinct, that he saw a photograph of you and he said you're the guy that he wanted and that you didn't have to audition? Is any of that true?
That's entirely true, which makes the story even crazier. What will make it even crazier, which I'll share with you, I haven't shared this with many people. I was offered the Richard Jewell miniseries 2 days before I was offered the film. So I had a straight offer without an audition to play Richard Jewell in a limited series in America for 4 months, shooting in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And then 2 days later, as I'm negotiating that contract, I get the offer verbally from Clint and his camp saying they want me for the movie. So I got offered the same character in opposing projects and within about 48 or 72 hours. So it was a very confusing, wild moment for me, and I kind of had to figure out what I was going to do. Of course, I sort of voted with my heart instead of my wallet, and said, I'll follow Clint to the ends of the earth if he'll have me.
Yeah. And I guess Clint Eastwood is one of those directors who you don't say no to.
You know what? I have a rule that there's no one that I will give definitive yeses to, on the spot. I love Scorsese, I love Spielberg, I love Wes Anderson, but the reality is such you still have to try to maintain artistic integrity. And if there's something that you feel you cannot do in the film, or something about the film you don't jive with, uh, sometimes you got to say no. So Clint or Spike Lee or some of these guys I've worked with, they do seem like the types you would never say no to. But I'd still reserve my right to say no. I think depending on the circumstance.
Yeah. So before Mark comes in, just in case people don't remember the story and they haven't seen the movie and they're waiting for it to come on their TV so they can stream it. Tell us who Richard Jewell was, because we're going back to 1996 and the Atlanta Olympic Games. Just outline the story for us, Paul.
Yeah. So Richard Jewell was somewhat of a failed police officer, just in the sense that he had fallen on hard times. He was a dedicated person who was good at his job, but he was also very aggressive. He took everything so seriously in a way that was kind of hard to keep up with. So I think there was a social awkwardness between him and his colleagues, and and he was relegated to being a security guard. So the film, when we first find Richard Jewell, it's him as a security guard, one of many, for the Olympic Games that took place in Atlanta, Georgia, in 1996. And of course, that sort of sixth sense for law enforcement and sort of obsession with his dutiful nature of being who he was, he found this backpack left in the park and thought, this is the perfect place for someone to try a terrorist related attack, so we better check out this backpack, make sure it's not an explosive device. And of course, without giving too much away, it was an explosive device. And instead of him being hailed the hero that he was for finding the bomb and saving lives, he, of course, becomes a suspect, and his life unfurls in that negative connotation.
Mark, do you want to come in there?
Yeah, can you tell us something about why you think it was that that his character was interpreted so negatively, and why it was that people immediately started thinking that rather than somebody doing what they should have been doing, suspicion, because the shadow of suspicion is cast very swiftly.
Yeah, that's sort of an evergreen problem. We've been doing that for as long as we've been around as a culture of human beings. I think you take contextual clues and they're spun into some form of loud evidence, and then that gets echoed and amplified by all the other news outlets. So this is nothing new. Richard Jewell, I think, he did have a schlubbier type of appearance, as I do myself. He did not have the greatest track record for maintaining employment, and at the time he was living with his mother, helping out around the house and sort of being a good son to her while she was getting ready to have surgery on her foot, and she couldn't get around too well. So everybody kind of looked at that loner, schlubby, singular mentality and thought, this guy doesn't have much going for him. I bet he did this to try to work in his favor and change his life. And that's, devastatingly untrue, unfair, and unfortunate.
And can I ask you something in relation to that as well? Because you very correctly at the beginning of this asked me about the review of the film. One of the things that I did raise in my review is the portrayal of Kathy Scruggs, who is the journalist who sort of is leading the charge against Richard Jewell's character. you will know that there was a lot of controversy about the portrayal of Kathy Scruggs, and that Olivia Wilde later said that as far as she was concerned, Scruggs was by all accounts bold, smart, and fearlessly undeterred by the challenge of being a female reporter. Do you have anything to add to what she then said about the portrayal of Scruggs in the film, who does come out of the film very poorly?
Yeah, I think the reality is such. We live in a very sensitive society where certain things are tolerated, but most everything is not by the masses. So you take a film like Foxcatcher. I love Foxcatcher, the Bennett
Yeah,
Miller film starring Steve Carell.
yeah.
That film surmises that Channing Tatum's character, who was a real man, was in a drug-induced sexual relationship with his mentor at the time, John DuPont, and that relationship was not consensual. That's alluded to. If you talk to everyone involved in that real story, they 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 say that that's Hollywood hogwash and that it was added to the screenplay for the benefit of the storytelling. I believe Foxcatcher was nominated for 4 or 5 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. I'm pretty sure. I don't know. So if they can get away with it with a guy who is now dead, the Mark Ruffalo character has since died by the hands of John DuPont. That's a very sensitive story that involves a murder, and yet they got away with that. So I think the one inferred moment where Olivia Wilde's character says to John Hamm's character, "Should we sneak out and fool around or whatever?" Had we omitted that one single line of dialogue, I don't think we would have had the uproarious reaction that we had. So when you think of it in those terms, that it's one moment of dialogue that made people turn against the film entirely, I think that's pretty strange. That would be my honest, untrained answer in an interview. Some actors get training to try to say the right thing and sound, politically correct. I'm just giving you my honest reaction, which is Foxcatcher's storytelling did something egregious. I think what we did was probably not nearly as thoughtful as it should have been,
Well, rest
but
assured
not
that
enough to cast the film aside entirely either.
rest assured that you are talking to two radio broadcasters who have no training either, Paul. So you are in good company.
Yeah,
Can I
man. Yeah,
can I ask
real
can I
people. I'll take it.
yeah, can I ask you about a couple of other great roles in this movie? We heard Kathy Bates in the clip playing your mother, playing Richard Jewell's mother, and Sam Rockwell is your lawyer. Who two characters that, along with yourself, kind of light the movie. It's terrific to watch all of you. Um, Kathy Bates is playing the role of someone who's still alive. Am I right in saying that? Is Bobby Jewell? Did she visit the set? Did she interact? What kind of conversations went on there, Paul?
Yeah, Bobby Jewell is alive and well. She was a very helpful consultant on the film as far as giving us all of the details and some of the painting with which to dress this film. I think she and Watson Bryan, who is also still alive and well, they were really game. They were really up for this movie happening. They were not upset about it. They were not trying to change the narrative in any way to make themselves look better. They just kind of showed up, warts and all, and bared themselves for the sake of the story. So they were incredibly helpful and really positive throughout the process. I think the craziest moment for me was meeting Bobby Jewell on the Warner Brothers lot in Burbank, California. I was pretty scared because what if this woman doesn't like me and I'm playing her
Yes.
son who's no longer here? But she was really, really supportive, and she kind of looked at me at one point and she said, "You look just like Richard. You look just like my son." And that was kind of a really helpful sign off for me to feel like I was meant to play the character.
Paul? I just want to. I wasn't sure whether I was going to ask this question or not because I'm chancing my arm a bit. But it was just I enjoyed the film very much. I thought it was you are terrific. Sam Rockwell, Kathy Bates, terrific. I knew something of the story. I didn't know everything, but we know quite a lot about Clint Eastwood. And I just here's the question that I'm chancing. One of the messages of a lot of the facts of this film are in the public domain. So, but one of the messages that I kind of took away from the movie is the mainstream media tell lies. You can't trust them. The FBI, they'll screw you if they get the chance. And of course, that kind of resonates with some of the things that President Trump says. And we know about the politics of Clint Eastwood. And I don't want to get too detailed about it. But that's when people get to the end of your movie, they'll think the FBI disgraceful, the mainstream media disgraceful. I mean, am I wide of the mark here? Tell me if I am.
Well, I think you're more so what you're saying isn't untrue, but you're also kind of playing into the spotlight of the moment, if you will. Okay. So when I saw the film Fruitvale Station with Michael B. Jordan, I was furious leaving the theater for what happened to that young man and his friends and his family. But did I leave the theater going, I really hate cops. I really hate the police. I think all authority figures are null, void, and crooked and stupid. Of course I didn't, because I'm a normal-minded individual who saw a film and was outraged by an isolated incident. Our film purports to do the exact same. It's just in the backdrop and the poor timing of the Trump administration. That's not really anyone's fault. If people make that connection and think that Clint Eastwood has a big fat crush on Donald Trump, I assure you that's untrue. I've spoken with Clint Eastwood. He does not have a big fat crush on Donald Trump. And his opinions on politics stayed pretty quiet. On set, if Clint was ever talking about anything, it was usually self-deprecating stories about his family or his past work,
Yeah. Mark, back to you.
We've talked before about having reviewed I, Tonya, and the strange thing is that in the case of I, Tonya, the character that you play is this misfit character who is completely delusional. And famously, at the end of the film, we see footage of the actual characters. And when I was watching I, Tonya, I did think that guy cannot really be that unhinged. And then you see the real footage of him and you go, that's the guy.
Yeah, you know what? Let me explain something that I don't think I've explained very well. I have a really rich comedy background. So I did stand-up comedy for over a decade. I took improvisational classes in Chicago and Los Angeles. And for a long time, I made these little sketch type videos on the internet with different groups of friends. So my background is definitely comedy. At the forefront of my interests lies the drama genre. So when I go to do a movie and I have a character that might be comedic, for Richard Jewell was a little less comedic and maybe unintentionally, and Sean Eckhart and I, Tonya was a little more intentional. I try to be really realistic with it. So I really, if I'm playing a real person, I'm just really aiming for exactitude. I'm never trying to overcook the character and try to be really funny or try to be really boisterous. And I think I also got, I think in Black Klansman, when I played that KKK member, a lot of people thought that was over the top and overly comedic. But if you've lived the life I've lived and been to enough bars and stuff throughout America, I've met the guy I played a half a dozen times. That's based off a real guy. So, the hope is that it doesn't feel corny or goofy. It feels realistic is the hope.
Well, am I right in saying...
Sorry, sorry, Simon, you go ahead.
Am I right in saying, Paul, that Jay Leno made a quip on his TV show that Sean Eckhart looked like Richard Jewell, or that Richard Jewell, when he was suddenly in the news, looked like Sean Eckhart? Was it Jay Leno that made the connection?
Jay Leno made that joke, which is insane, which is crazy. And there's also just weird connective tissue too with Chris Farley played my character in I, Tonya in a sketch on Saturday Night Live. And then Richard Jewell was a guest during a Weekend Update segment on Saturday Night Live.
Wow. Wow, that's extraordinary. Listen, Paul, we appreciate all the time that you spent with us. Thank you so much. When you finally get let out and there's another filming project, do you know what you're going to be doing first?
Hopefully celebrating and talking to you guys about it again. I've had a really fun streak with I, Tanya, Black Klansman, and Richard Jewell. I'm trying to work with really great directors and actors. So there's nothing I can speak about right now because it's all still kind of cooking. But I will say I'm in Spike Lee's new film with Netflix, which I think is dropping this summer. And then I have a Disney film with Emma Stone called Cruella, which I shot in the UK. That comes out 2021.
Oh, wow. Okay. Lots to look forward to. Paul Walter Hauser, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time, sir.
Thanks for having me, guys. God bless you. Stay healthy.